welcome to Furious Driving. Now, if you saw the last video about the Saab 96, then you'll be perhaps a little bit familiar with these cars already. If you haven't seen that one, then maybe bookmark this and come back to it in a second having watched that one, because this is an interesting story about progress. Most cars have like a Mark 1 and a Mark 2, and there's gradual changes between the models. This one though, I thought they never really called it a Mark 2. It was a significant difference between the earlier and the later cars. When the 96 came out in 1960, and this, the estate version 95 1959, they came with a 3-cylinder 841cc 2-stroke engine, which on paper sounds like it's going to be dreadful, but in reality it is a screaming nutter of a car. The thing is though, although it's remarkably brisk for a car with such a small engine, and it's very responsive indeed, the thing is, it's a little bit loud, and because it's a 2-stroke, you're constantly having to feed it oil. So from fairly early on in the car's production, they were looking at 4-stroke alternatives. And in 1967, that happened with this. And it is virtually a different car. It looks the same, but it feels just so different. Anyway, welcome to the channel and welcome to the review. I want to say a big thank you to Hagström Saab in Norfolk for loaning the car for the review. Check out the link to their website in the description below. And if you'd like reviews of interesting, unusual, different old and new cars, then please check out the back catalogue of many videos on the channel. So, starting with what was already a good platform, Sixten Sarsen's lovely aerodynamic design, because Saab, of course, as everybody knows, were an aircraft designer and manufacturer to begin with. The 92 and the 93 revolved into the 96, and of course this, the 95 estate version, which is in itself an amazing thing for 1959-1960 to have a 7-seater. Okay, it's a 3-door estate, which is a little unusual to have that many seats with so few doors. Whee! These things stick so incredibly to the road. It's remarkable. The design was solid. Apart from the engine bay, things have remained very similar indeed. We still have dual wishbone suspension at the front, trailing arms at the back, coil springs, all that. We now though have disc brakes, which are a lot sharper underfoot. We are of course still equipped with freewheeling transmission. This was a hangover. They didn't need it anymore because we've now got a 4-stroke engine with a proper lubrication system. But it is just an ingrained part of the car. There is a switch down there somewhere which you can pull to turn the freewheeling off. It's quite disconcerting as you come barreling into a corner. Whoops, reaching in the wrong place. Barreling into a corner, change down, and really nothing happens. The engine just gets louder. There had been quite a long-lived attempt to make the 4-cylinder happen in the car's life. However, there was opposition from upstairs within the Saab company. And this is quite a tale. Grab a cup of tea and sit down, because really this takes some telling. The plan to put a 4-stroke engine into the 95 and 96 was called Operation Kajsa, and it began in 1962. So between 1962 and 1964, Kjell Knutsensen and Ingvar Andersson, working under boss Rolf Meld, tried to fit various 4-cylinder engines into the car. They tried a BMC A-Series, a Lancia Apia engine, and something out of a Borg Ward.
but none quite hit the mark. Unfortunately, CEO Trygve Holm was not keen on changing from the two-stroke. He loved the old system, and so he blocked it. So Rolf Meld went over his head and went to the major shareholders and had him overruled. Then they started testing other engines, including the Volvo B18, the Ford V4, the Triumph 1300 and the Lancia V4, engines from Opel and VW, and even the Hillman Imp motor, before deciding on the Ford V4. The Volvo had given ultimate reliability, but the Ford wasn't far behind and fitted in the platform better. Engineer Per Gilbrand went on unexpected leave, pretending to be helping with his parents' painting business, but in fact he was in Italy with a prototype doing road testing. Meanwhile, Saab engineers rented a house and set up a front company in order to order parts to and develop the car from, in secret from the rest of the Saab company. It wasn't until mere weeks before the car was launched that the staff at Saab actually started discovering the secret that had been going on.
The earliest V4 cars made 65 horsepower and actually still had Ford Moco stamps all over them. FOMOCO. But from 1976 onwards, although they lost the Ford badging, they actually dropped a little bit of power as well to meet new emissions regulations. They fell to 62 horsepower. But that was just for a year. From 1977 up until 1980, they changed it to a Solex two-stage carburettor, and the power went up to 68 horsepower. It's curious how massively offset the pedals are, same as in the left-hand drive previous version. So you really are sitting at a funny angle to drive the thing. But the steering is astonishingly light, and the ride and handling are just incredible. These things were rallied with huge success back in the day, and you can really see why, because they just grip and cling to the road. Like a Rover P6, they do roll around quite a lot, but they roll around quite a lot, but they fill you with so much confidence that the car is doing exactly what you want it to be doing and isn't going to come a cropper. As I often say, I'm a big fan of a column shift gear change because they're a little bit unusual today, but I find them really easy to use. Still got a full set of GoPros on the car. Hang on, let's double check. Got one there, one back. I assume we've got one on the roof still. Now you'd imagine that the engine being so far out ahead of the axle would really give it rather unusual handling characteristics, like some of the Audis over the years have done, but you don't really notice it, which is quite curious. In Saab's later years, they were controlled largely by GM. GM took a 50% stake in the company in 1989 and full control of Saab in 2000. And you just can't imagine the kind of engineering and the practices that went on to make this car happen occurring under a company like GM, with all the hierarchies and the bureaucracy, renting a house, setting up a fake front company, not telling half the staff or most of the staff what was going on, that a new product was happening. It was absolutely crazy. The fact that GM then ran Saab into the ground is perhaps an indicator that doing things the Saab way might have been better after all. You do have absolutely incredible visibility out of this car. You got a nice big windscreen, you got big side windows, the headroom is just immense. You can tell this car evolved in a hat-wearing era. So let's look around the outside of the 95 or the 95, depending on how you want to phrase it. It is obviously remarkably similar to the 96, which is of course the saloon of the same car. So at the front, the tin work is very, very similar indeed. This is quite an early V4 car, so we do have a lot of the early style fixtures and fittings on it. For example, we have the more delicate front end treatment, and we've got the thinner bits of rubber on the overriders. Also, there are two different eras of wheel design, and this car is sporting both of them helpfully to illustrate the changes through the years. And of course, if you watched the 96 video a couple of days ago, you'll notice that the front end treatment is very different indeed. So we've now got oblong headlights rather than round headlights, and a very different grille arrangement. And very Swedishly, we do have extremely safe and visible indicator side light combinations. And moving down the side of the car, we have got very, very elegant design. Sixten Sarsen's design is very, very nice indeed. You'll see all his work in the early Saabs up until the beginning of the 1970s. Very, very sadly indeed, he died in 1967, so barely getting time to see his creations come to life. He was only in his mid-50s as well, very sad. But you'll notice we've got a lot of detail going, like on the 96, lots of detail. So again, we have the stainless steel trim, we've now got a V4 badge, we have the pressed fake louver down the side, and we have double windows in the back, so passengers can see out from all three rows of seats. Yes, this is a 7-seater, believe it or not. I'm particularly keen on the styling where this long swage line drops down the entire length of the car, while this one continues, and at the back on the roof, take a look at this. So that we don't need a rear wiper, we have this vent, this groove behind the rear spoiler, which pushes air underneath it and directs it down the rear glass, keeping this area clear of rain. Very clever indeed. So the bonnet again hinges forward, and again the engine is sitting completely ahead of the front axle. You might expect the balance of the car to be completely off, but no, really it's not. But in place of the 3-cylinder 2-stroke oil-fed previous engine in the pre-1967 cars, this one has the Ford V4 in it, a proper 4-stroke engine and a V-motor no less. But once again, it is hanging out right ahead of the front axle. The gearbox is mounted directly behind it, but like a transaxle, the power is taken directly out the sides of the gearbox, not transmitted to the back of the car. So front wheel drive, longitudinal, engine in front of the axle. Absolutely bonkers, but they made it work, and made it work well for 20 years. Can't argue with that, can you? And at the other end of the car, that's quite stiff. Things have taken a turn for the seriously practical, because we've got these fold down seats which fold into the floor of the boot and give us 2 more spaces. Now, it's not a lot of headroom back here, but I can sit here in almost comfort, I would say. You'd have to be fairly chummy with whoever's sitting next to you, but if you're looking for space for the kids, this is the perfect location. But this is one of the things, we're back in the old days when this kind of stuff was okay, it was acceptable in the 80s. Kids riding in the back of the car, waving to the car behind, was the coolest, most fun thing in the world. I remember doing this when I was young, and the owner of Hagström Saab also remembers riding in the back of one of these very cars doing the same thing. But yes, this is astonishingly a 7-seater, or put the seat down, fold it into the floor where it becomes a flat floor. Is basically a van. Very useful indeed. So practical. Let's climb back in and shelter from the biting wind out here on the Norfolk. Oh, in the Norfolk Broads, we're in Norfolk anyway. Oh, there's a Nissan Cube. Wow, cool. We love a cube on this channel. And yeah, so take a look around the inside of this car, because it's quite interesting. This is the V4. It's effectively the Mark II, if you like, of the Saab 9596, and things have come on quite a long way. So starting with the doors, as we get in, one thing that hasn't changed is the way that the car door rolls around and seals up the sill. Same as on much later Saabs like the 900. But the door card itself has significantly changed. We've now got 2 tones of elephant hide. We've now got the black wrinkly hide at the top, we've got the black wrinkly hide at the bottom, with this interesting circly design and a grey pattern in the middle above the silver line. But we've now got this recessed safety door handle. Like you find on things like the Volvos, the door handle is hidden within the door structure, so if there's an accident, you're not going to hurt yourself. The previous one was, of course, the delicate, sticky-outy, chromy, more 1960s style. But now, in place of the probably won't hurt you very much door handle, we've got a definitely will hurt you quite a lot metal ashtray. And one thing I need to show you, because it's absolutely superb, is the way that this window winds down, because it is so cool. Check this out. It kind of folds into the door. It pivots rather than sliding. Isn't that crazy?
hence the large point just here on the corner of the A post. Let's shut this because it's blooming freezing. Now, we do have on this car, I'm told it's the early style dashboard for the V4. It's quite similar to the previous two-stroke style dashboard. The one we drove in the other video was actually a left-hand drive one, so there are a couple of changes. We have got identical T-shelf, this little ribbed textured affair just here. Not a great T-shelf because it's quite narrow and it's sloping, so any cups of tea and snacks you're going to put on there will definitely fall off. We have still got the ventilation going out the window and the side window ventilation as well, but the mirror has now moved to the ceiling, the more traditional location. We can actually see stuff out the back window. We do still have the Sarka Hudson lace skid safety sun visors. I will work out how you say this properly later on, which fold down for us, and it says it on the back as well. And on the dashboard itself, we've basically got a mirror image of the old left-hand drive early dashboard. I will try and find a later one to show you on screen to show you the comparison, but it's still a metal dashboard and all of our Saab branded dials. So we've got a Saab branded clock, we've got a Saab branded temperature gauge, Saab branded fuel gauge, Saab branded speedo, which is now an MPH, and our little warning lights are a little bit bigger than they were before. And some of our switches have moved. We've now got hazard lights down here. That's kind of cool. I love that tink sound. And our awesome, this is my favourite switch in the entire car, our awesome headlight switch is now up here on the dashboard. Double pull, turn on, next to a proper sized choke. And our heating and ventilation controls have moved to the centre, whereas before they were over in the corner. The other big differences to this car from the previous or slightly older cars is the fact we've now got a different steering wheel, which is, instead of having the chrome horn ring in the centre, now has a safety pad in the centre to speed you a tiny bit less. And our gear shift is still a column change, but it's now on the left-hand side of the wheel instead of the right-hand side. And we've also got an actual instruction thing of where to find the gears, which is a useful thing. One thing I don't know where to find now is the horn. How am I going to do a horn test without finding the horn? Oh, it's here. The wipers have now moved onto this curious little crank handle just here. And if you push it up, you have the weirdest horn I've ever did here. That is a part that feels like it's overshadowed by its maybe inferior predecessor when it's trying to make its mark in the world. But it is an absolutely huge steering wheel, and our indicators are now on the right-hand side, whereas previously they were more normally on the left. Our pedals, like on the left-hand drive car, are massively offset towards the centre of the car. Our high beam control is no longer foot mounted, but somewhere down here there is a lever to help us control the freewheeling aspect of the car. If I could locate it and work out how it works, I would probably show you how it works, but I will probably break it, so I might not. We also have a handbrake which is weirdly floating in the middle of nowhere. It's just up in the air. It feels like it doesn't go up high enough or down low enough. It's just a massive weird thing. And now in a concession to modernity, we have storage bins down by the footwells, which is interesting. We already have quite a lot of intrusion from the front wheel wells into the footwells, but now we have bins also. And looking into the back of the car, these front seats tip forward to allow access, and you don't exactly have acres and acres of knee room. These seats fold down so you can make it into a bit of a van. You've got a sort of padded elbow thing, and you've got an ashtray. And we have windows that don't open in the middle row, but do flip sideways outwards on the rear row, and there's a little courtesy light over on the C post and here on the B post. All good fun stuff, and a grab handle thing, and some mildly confusing seat belts. I think that's the interior of this car pretty much covered. Right, let's get back on the road in our, frankly, almost normal engined car, I should say. So yeah, this is a completely different car from the two-stroke, although it looks virtually the same. The power delivery is just so unutterably different. The power band is in a completely different place. It's not just the fact that there is more power, because there is almost double. It's just the way it arrives, because although there is a lot more torque, you pull out of a corner and it wants to pull with you, but the old one did that as well.
it just feels a bit more relaxed. The two-stroke was just frenetic. It always wanted to buzz and scream and shout. It felt like you were going a lot faster than you actually were. The four-stroke, though, probably isn't a lot faster. It just feels a lot more relaxed about what it's doing. It is still, though, an absolute hoot to drive. Like the two-stroke, this has got the 4-speed column shift here on the steering column. And of course, it's kept the all-speed synchro as well. Why they didn't go to a floor change, I don't know. Saab was a very traditional company, in certain ways quite set in their ways about doing things in the way they've always done it. An element of we fear change going on there. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this ride out in another classic Saab. I know I've certainly had a great time rolling around in this thing. If you've enjoyed this, please as always hit like and of course subscribe. And if you want to be a friend to the channel, maybe share this video somewhere online or with your friends. And join us again next time driving something completely different. Oh, it goes silent when you stop accelerating. It's weird. Goodbye.